8 people showed up to the opening night. 8, not 800, not 8,000. 8 people sat in a Los Angeles theater in September 1975 and watched the Rocky Horror Picture Show for the first time. Critics called it tasteless, incomprehensible, unwatchable trash. The studio considered burying it entirely and writing off the loss. The cast sat in the theater watching what they were certain was the end of their careers. 50 years later, it is the longest-running theatrical release in film history. It still plays every week, somewhere in the world, in front of audiences who throw rice, scream at the screen, and wear the same white underwear Susan Sarandon wore by accident. Today, 15 facts about the Rocky Horror Picture Show. From the rock stars who almost played Frank-N-Furter, to the frozen pool that nearly killed 2 actors, to the bonus about the prop that audiences still throw at screens half a century later. Fact 1. 8 people came to opening night, and the studio tried to bury the film entirely. When the Rocky Horror Picture Show premiered in Los Angeles in September 1975, the audience numbered 8. By the second week, theaters were empty. Variety called it a certain flop. 20th Century Fox pulled it from major markets within weeks. Tim Curry later said the premiere felt like a funeral. Susan Sarandon left early, too depressed to watch. Richard O'Brien believed he had destroyed his own creation. What saved it was a late-night programmer in Minneapolis who screened it at midnight as a joke. College students showed up, loved it, and told their friends. The film that died in daylight came back to life after midnight and never left. Fact 2. Mick Jagger and David Bowie were both offered Frank-N-Furter before Tim Curry. The producers wanted someone bankable. They offered the role to Mick Jagger first. He was interested, but his manager said no. Too risky, too weird, wrong for his image. They then approached David Bowie, who loved the script but was already committed to The Man Who Fell to Earth. Director Jim Sharman eventually refused to continue searching. He told producers that Curry was non-negotiable, that other stars could play Frank's sexuality, but only Curry could play the loneliness and desperation underneath. The producers agreed reluctantly. The role that 2 of the biggest names in music turned down became the defining performance of Curry's career. Fact 3. Tim Curry's corset nearly stopped production, and he refused every attempt to make it more comfortable. The corset was laced so tightly that Curry could barely breathe between takes. Medical staff were on standby throughout. Costume designer Sue Blaine created a more comfortable version. Curry rejected it. Wrong silhouette, wrong feeling. Frank-N-Furter would suffer for beauty, and so would he. During the sweet transvestite number alone, Curry performed for nearly 4 hours. The corset cut into his ribs and left welts that took weeks to heal. Cast members described watching him as inspiring and disturbing in equal measure. Brilliant on camera, collapsed between takes, ribs heaving, face pale. He paid the physical price willingly because some roles demand everything. Fact 4. The mansion used as the castle was actively falling apart during filming. Oakley Court was chosen because it was cheap. The building had been abandoned for years and was in genuine structural collapse. Roof tiles fell during filming. Parts of the facade crumbled during night shoots, sending masonry crashing down around the crew. Production posted safety monitors throughout. Actors were told to move quickly through certain areas. Crew wore hard hats. When it rained, which it did constantly, the production evacuated, genuinely concerned the structure might give way. Jim Sharman loved it. The castle wasn't performing decay. It was a real building in its final weeks. After production wrapped, Oakley Court was renovated into a hotel. During filming, it was a legitimate hazard the cast and crew described as making a movie inside a tomb. Fact 5. Susan Sarandon's iconic white underwear was a costume malfunction. The white bra and slip Janet wears throughout was not planned. The actual costumes kept failing during rehearsals. Zippers broke, seams split. With filming scheduled and no time to fix anything, costume designer Sue Blaine made a snap decision. Put her in underwear. Sarandon was appalled. She was a serious actress, building a respectable career. Blaine argued it served the character. Janet stripped down literally and figuratively, her innocence gone. Reluctantly, Sarandon agreed. The white underwear became one of the most iconic looks in cinema history. It was all because a zipper broke, and nobody had time to fix it. Fact 6. The film was made for $1.2 million, and the crew raided dumpsters for props. Jaws, released the same year, cost $9 million. Rocky Horror was broke constantly. Props were borrowed or stolen. Costumes came from thrift stores. The throne Frank sits on cost $50. Laboratory equipment was borrowed from a science museum with promises to return it undamaged. Those promises were not kept. The aesthetic that audiences now describe as deliberately theatrical was financial necessity that became artistic identity. A larger budget might have produced something polished, realistic, and completely wrong. The film looks like outsiders made it in someone's basement because essentially they did, on a 6-week schedule, where mistakes stayed in and rough edges were never smoothed. Fact 7. Richard O'Brien wrote the show as autobiography. O'Brien grew up in New Zealand feeling wrong, alien, permanently out of place. He moved to London, struggled as an actor, and felt like a permanent outsider. Riff Raff, the servant who waits in shadows while others have experiences, is autobiographical. Frank-N-Furter was every part of O'Brien that society told him to hide. When the stage show opened in London, he had exposed himself completely. Audiences responded by recognizing themselves in his outsiders. O'Brien realized he was not alone. The show succeeded because it was authentic, not a commentary on outsiders, but created by one. Fact 8. The pool scene nearly killed both actors. The pool was unheated. Filming took place in winter at approximately 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Sarandon was required to be in it for hours. She developed hypothermia twice. The pool had not been properly cleaned. Chemical levels were wrong. Both Sarandon and Curry developed ear infections, eye irritation, and skin problems. Curry's makeup ran constantly and required repeated reapplication. Sharman insisted the scene had to feel dreamlike and dangerous and pushed them to continue regardless. When you watch the sequence, Sarandon's shivers are not performance. Curry's urgency to finish is not a character choice. They are both trying to survive. 8 people at opening night. Jagger and Bowie both said no. A corset that left welts for weeks. A crumbling castle. A contaminated pool that sent both lead actors to the medics. We're not halfway through. Still coming. The lips that belong to one actress, but the voice that belongs to someone else. The Meatloaf scene that ended his acting career and launched a rock legend. And the bonus about what audiences still throw at screens 50 years later. Fact 9. The opening lips belong to Patricia Quinn, but the voice belongs to Richard O'Brien. The iconic lips that open the film are Quinn's. The voice singing science fiction double feature is not. Quinn recorded the opening number, but her version was too sweet, too melodic. O'Brien wanted something stranger, so he sang it himself, and they kept Quinn's lips because they looked perfect. Quinn did not know about the switch until the premiere. She watched the opening, recognized her lips, heard a man's voice, and felt betrayed. For years, she corrected interviewers. Those are my lips, but not my voice. She eventually made peace with it. Those lips became the film's logo, its most reproduced image worldwide for 50 years. She gave Rocky Horror its face. Fact 10. Meatloaf's experience on the film ended his acting career and launched a rock legend. The freezer scenes were physically brutal. The death scene was worse. Choreography required Meatloaf to be lifted, dropped, and manhandled violently. During one take, he was dropped incorrectly, injuring his leg. Production continued with no time for injuries. After Rocky Horror wrapped, he swore off acting for years. The experience felt too harsh, too dehumanizing. He focused on music instead, which led directly to Bat Out of Hell and one of the most successful rock albums in history. Frank-N-Furter killing Eddie on screen killed Meatloaf's acting career and created a rock legend. Fact 11. The time warp took 3 days and approximately 70 takes to film. 16-hour shooting days for 3 straight days. The same dance, the same song, endlessly repeated. Curry's legs gave out multiple times. Sarandon developed blisters that bled through her shoes. Bostwick pulled a muscle on the second day and finished the sequence while injured. By day 3, cast and crew were delirious with fatigue. The version audiences know was assembled from the best moments of approximately 70 attempts. It looks effortless and joyful. Nobody watching knows that the smiles were produced by people who could barely stand. Fact 12. The audience invented a second script and changed cinema's relationship with its viewers. Someone yelled a joke during a pause in the dialogue. Others repeated it. Lines evolved, sharpened, spread from theater to theater until by 1977, a standardized callback script existed. Thousands of people in hundreds of theaters yelling the same responses, creating a second film written entirely by audiences. Shadow casts formed. Audiences brought rice for the wedding, newspapers for the rain, toast for dinner, rubber gloves, confetti, toilet paper. Theater owners tried to ban props. The ritual only grew more determined. Rocky Horror invented participatory cinema, and every sing-along and quote-along screening since has inherited that invention. Fact 13. The film created a sanctuary for LGBTQ audiences when being openly queer could cost everything. In the 1970s and 1980s, being openly gay or trans meant risking family, employment, and safety. Inside Rocky Horror midnight screenings, for 2 hours a week, people could exist completely and unapologetically. Multiple cast members and fans have said on record that the film kept them alive, that when everything felt hopeless, there was Friday midnight at the local theater. O'Brien did not set out to create an LGBTQ sanctuary. He made something authentic enough that marginalized people recognized themselves in it and claimed it. Frank-N-Furter's instruction, "Don't dream it, be it," was not a lyric, it was permission. Fact 14. 20th Century Fox tried to bury the film and never quite reconciled with what it became. Fox financed Rocky Horror reluctantly, with minimal budget and minimal faith. When it failed, they considered themselves vindicated. When midnight screenings turned it into a phenomenon, they cautiously authorized merchandise and additional prints while never truly embracing what the film had become. To this day, the studio profits from streaming rights and anniversary editions while treating it as the property that doesn't quite fit the catalog. Fans prefer this arrangement. Rocky Horror belongs to the audiences who kept it alive when Fox wanted it dead. The studio owns the copyright. 50 years of Outcasts own everything else. Fact 15. It is the longest-running theatrical release in film history, and the record will likely never be broken. The Rocky Horror Picture Show still plays in theaters every week, 50 years after the opening night that 8 people attended. New audiences discover it, learn the callbacks, buy their first prop bags, and become part of something continuous since 1975. The film is dated. The production values show their budget. Not every joke lands. None of that matters because Rocky Horror stopped being about the film long ago. It is about community, tradition, and the experience of being in a room full of strangers who are also, somehow, your people. And now the bonus I've been saving for last. The prop that audiences still throw at screens 50 years later is toast. It began at an early midnight screening when someone produced a piece of toast during the dinner scene. Frank raising his glass to toast the guests, and threw it at the screen. Nobody planned it. The person next to them laughed. Someone brought toast the following week. Within months, it was a tradition in theaters across the country. Toast, dry, ordinary, domestic toast, the most mundane object imaginable, hurled at a movie screen as an act of communal participation in a film about a sweet transvestite from transsexual Transylvania. Theater owners have spent decades trying to ban it. It has never stopped. Rocky Horror audiences have thrown rice at the wedding, newspapers at the rain, rubber gloves at the laboratory, and toilet paper at Brad. But the toast persists above all others because it is the most absurd and therefore the most perfect expression of what the Rocky Horror audience has always been. People who looked at a rule, in this case, the rule that you do not throw food at a cinema screen, and decided collectively that they would not be following it. The film died on opening night in 1975. Toast brought it back.